This is day 1 of the January 91 7-day retreat at Springwater. Before getting into the talk, 2 things I forgot to mention last night. One is about this chair on this particular mat. I don't use it very often, just a round before the talk, and then a bit before each block of sitting meeting. All the rest of the time the chair is available for people to sit on. Try it out. Use it. The other thing is that once during a meeting block, I take a break and either walk with people here if there's walking, or if they're sitting, I sit. I stand quietly with people who are sitting here. Not to do anything, to examine postures, or just to be quiet with each other. As nobody. If for any reason this should disturb anyone, don't like somebody standing next to you, then let me know and I won't do it. In the first talk of every retreat that has been held, I've talked about the quality of listening in a talk such as this, and bring up the question of what is authority and what is our relationship with each other. It's not just important for the people who may be here for the first time, but for all of us to continuously question these things, look at them, not allow thought to say, I've understood this once and now it's clear. Because if there's not a very sensitive awareness, our old habits invariably and inevitably take over. So to always bring it up freshly, whatever is problematical to us, our relationship with each other, and our listening to each other, bring it up, bring it up, bring it up, look at it afresh, alone, together, in groups, in a talk such as this, and never allow that program to function. Well, we know all of that we've seen that, we've clarified it. Then it's already dark again. Dark with the old habits. So what is listening to this talk right now? And the listening is also the talking. It's not different. In talking there's listening, and in listening is there looking? Can there be looking at what is said? That's very difficult. Or very unusual that it's put it that way, because our training has been to just listen to words and comprehend them intellectually, verbally, analyze, remember, compare to what has been heard or learned before. This is how we're programmed. This mind is programmed this way. And on that level we argue and debate and object or agree. But we're asking for something much deeper than that. That even though there is intellectual, verbal understanding of the meaning of the words that are said, we also want to find out, what do these words stand for? What do they actually refer to? Is there something that they refer to? Can't assume it. A person may talk purely from memory and in a mechanical groove. One person brought that up this morning. I find more and more, the more I look into all of this, that I'm constantly responding in a mechanical way. I don't seem to be able to respond in any other way. And the people that I talk with are the same way. We're all talking in grooves, so superficially, so automatically, from knowledge. Is there any other kind of communication, was the question. I can't see any other. That's all that seems to come out. And I'm tired of it, the person said. I don't want to continue that way, but I don't know any other way. So we're asking here, right now in this marvelous, empty, quiet room, on this quiet hill on a quiet day, whether there can be a listening and also looking, opening up to what it is that words refer to. A lot will be said about ourselves, the self, the whole complex structure, program of the self, me, mine, I and you. Will one just listen to that verbally, or wonder about what it is referring to, or watch it as it is observable, to a mind that begins to open up inwardly to its own processes? It's not impossible. That's the marvelous thing. This programmed thinking and reacting process, even though it can proceed so blindly, so mechanically, so unawares, can also open up to observation or insight, awareness, so that suddenly it's clear what caused the upset, what caused the anger, and what thoughts arise out of the anger, and what feelings proceed from the thoughts. We're not condemned in any way to live blindly, mechanically, even though that's what we do most of the time. And what is said here is not ever meant to be condemnation or moral, ethical judgment of human beings, of the self, of me. Can we hear that? Remember that? Remember it when the defenses come up to protect against attack. One feels attacked personally. Can one see how defensive we are when we feel personally attacked? As individuals, as groups, as nations. And then attack back. Can that process be lit up as it happens in a human being without being condemned? Not being condemned anywhere, because condemnation prevents clarity of understanding. One can find that out for oneself. As long as one is defensive, one cannot be clear. open, innocently open in the presence of all kinds of mistaken notions that have been programmed into this body-mind since before we were born. Mistaken notions about ourselves and each other. Mistaken notions about the reality of thought, that what we think about is real, which it is not most of the time. Here we just said, can we see what words that are spoken refer to? Is there something real that a thought refers to? Because thought is not any other reality than thought. But it may refer to something, to anger. The thought about anger is not the momentum of anger. The story we tell ourselves about our situation and what it triggers throughout the body. And further story and further anger. And all kinds of assumptions about how I should be treated, respected. And if I'm not, the immediate punch to the body, triggering all kinds of chemicals. I just read a book mentions neurotransmitters. A thought becoming a neurotransmitter, a chemical which does not affect just one part of the body, but the whole body. Chemicals that the body produces affect the whole body and are recognized by other cells in the body, and they act according to the information received. And this is not just theoretical, although the model there, one can picture it, image it, but one can also be present when it happens. When one angry thought or one fearful thought has the whole body in uproar, in agitation, depression. So, coming back to what is being said, it's not meant to ever be personally critical of anyone or oneself. We're not trying to criticize and condemn, moralize, wave a finger, blame, even though we're used to that and we're used to hearing things that way and we react that way. But it's not what is meant in these talks to happen. What is meant to happen is to reveal things, to expose and open up what happens in us so in such concealed and hidden way. Only thing that's not hidden is the final reaction of the body. Even that we're not often in touch with. Because we're also so programmed to repress, not to feel pain, not to feel fear, sorrow. One could see that so amazingly on television during these long hours of watching news about the war. Some people reporting with lots of emotion, others with a face of wax. Nothing felt about what was being said about. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of explosive dropped on buildings, and people are not uninhabited. We're not that far yet. These bombed sites and missile sites and anti-aircraft sites are inhabited by people who are afraid or indoctrinated to die for the cause and the belief in the paradise that will certainly have to be better than what one is in right now. So we have learned not to feel. The brain can do that. The brain body has a complex, a marvelous system that is this human organism. The more one reads about it, the more one is just struck with awe and wonder. And yet the effects can be a numbing, a blindness, which is a byproduct of the marvelous potential of this body-mind. And here we're asking whether there can be a thawing, like yesterday, in the sunshine. The ice and snow began to start moving and flowing in little rivulets down the gravel path. Can what has been so immovable and iced up, fixed, begin to thaw and move, which will cause pain? The pain of the unexpected, of the scary. But scary already means there are thoughts again. What is going to happen to me? Will I fall apart? Will I lose my mind? Will I be overwhelmed? These thoughts come up. They are also programmed. But we don't have to take them as the truth. Just as we can't take news that comes to us as the truth. We don't know whether it's true or not. We don't know whether we will be we don't even know what it is to be overwhelmed. We may have learned to ward off insight and feelings with the assumption that it would be too painful, too overwhelming. But no one I am aware of who has been open to look has ever been overwhelmed. It's in the running, in the avoiding, in the bracing, which increases this division in ourselves between someone who has all of that and what he has or what she has, which is all mistaken notions. When that rift comes together, there's no me that has all of that. There's only what is, and it is listened to and felt. Then pain cannot be overwhelming. It's not even pain. What is it? Can one listen and feel and look and be there completely, without escape, without defense? Can one listen like that when things are brought up in a talk that may be pain-producing, fear-producing? Be with what comes up. See it, feel it, and not know what to do about it. Not know what to do about it. That's almost a taboo in our society, in the way we grow up and have grown up. And because we always do, we create more and more and more problems. Because our doing comes out of a very limited perspective of limited thought, limited experience, limited knowledge, limited conditioning. But we live and die as wholes. We're not fragments. We think we are. But we are part of this whole, entire, whatever it is. Movement of life, of aliveness. Universe, these are just words. But the wholeness and non-division is not just a word, it's a fact. is so. And it can only reveal itself or become upon or come into being when the mind is not caught up in action against or for, doing something about something. I'm talking right now about what we call psychological problems. I'm not talking about fixing a leak in the roof. So in talking, listening, one during this time of a retreat, can a new, unlearned listening take place. I'll try also to talk very slowly, not to just rattle on so fast. So it's possible as one listens, there's also looking, examining, wondering, not knowing, opening up to one knows not what is happening. Which already implies the next point we're going to make about authority. It's within our programs to make a person who sits in front of a group of people with a microphone into an authority. What does it mean to make somebody into an authority? I make you into an authority when I take over what you say as being what I think is the truth. I want to hear something that's comforting to me or gives me security, gives me energy. I want to hear more from you because you do that for me. Make me feel more secure, dispense me from thinking this out for myself, from facing something. I just believe in the words you say. They're true. You must have enough experience. You've done it often enough, long enough. I've read something about you. You've got a book out. You must be an authority. And that relieves me from testing for myself. And this is not what I'm here to do. Be this authority for people. I myself, every time there's a talk, every time there's a question, we may have discussed it in the meeting, but when it appears here, I write some of it down and then it appears in the mind, I look at it freshly, not based on what I have figured out about it. I think it's the only reason why it's possible to give talk after talk, month and year after year, to take something up again for the first time, and then not fall into this groovy talking and thinking that the person this morning brought up and is suffering from and wants to be finished with. For that the mind must be in that renewing quality of facing something again freshly. And then one is not an authority. One looks together. You say, well, why together? I'm not saying anything. People tell me this. You say this, but you're the only one who's talking. I can't quite explain it, but if you weren't here, I wouldn't give this talk. So it's because we're together. And because your questions are here in this mind. And they come from your mind, so it's the same mind. And there is in this mind awareness of the questions, not only from this morning. The questions that this mind brings up. This mind is not isolated from the human mind. It has watched the same news over television, has had the same fears and apprehensions. Maybe not completely the same, but in general principle the same. And of course we have meetings and group discussions where these so-called individual minds meet and pool their information, their problems. And if one is really open and non-defensive, one sees these are not different problems for different human beings. Maybe one more of this and this one less of that. But problem of fear, of anger, of hurt and retaliation, they're universal human problems and have been. That's why we've had war after war and have never learned from it. The idea we can only understand through force. A lot of things happen through force. One can knock out someone, a country, and then impose something through force. But understanding can never be the consequence of force, of authority, of edict, of dogma, of belief. It doesn't go that way. Understanding is a tender, sensitive, flower-like thing, if one uses any metaphor. It has to have air and light and space and right nourishment. Freedom to grow, to open up, to receive. So will one observe the processes of making the person, Toni in this case, into an authority? Will one observe it because it does go on? People have told me more than just observing that it goes on. With it goes often anger of not getting this authority that one has wanted, and therefore then fighting her. Fighting her or pleading. Can one observe all of that? It's not bad. It's to be observed. It's to be discovered. And then in really seeing something, can one be out of the influence of that? Finished with being influenced, right, for that moment. How it'll be next moment one has to see. But at the moment, the process is interrupted when there's some glimpse of what is going on. The glimpse is the interruption of the process of wanting a teacher who is something for me, does something for me, who I can identify with, give my life to, and so forth. We have all of these programs in us. It's not our individual fault or strength. It's all programmed, all conditioning. It's in fields. Many people speak about that now, fields that connect us in these propensities and momentums and characteristics, which knocks at this deep conviction that we're an individuality, so unique and so proud of ourselves, or so down on ourselves for not being good or not being this or that. And all of that could go by the wayside if we see how programmed we are, all of us. And we see it in our reactions to each other. That's why just going off into a hermitage does not provide that opportunity to see our programming. It may reveal other programs, or it may not. Who knows? But when we're with each other, the reacting, the defensiveness, the aggressiveness, the anger, or wanting to be liked and doing things nice for you so that you like me, all of this comes to the surface and can be seen if we're not critical of it or condemning of it. If we don't think we should be different, or if we're convinced we're not that way, then we won't look. And we can see that moment of looking the other way. It can be caught. And rationalizations want to come up. Well, so is it clear that there's no denial here that I'm giving talks? Why I give talks has a historical background, which I don't have to go into. A long time ago, even before going to a Zen center, at that time teaching was not in my mind at all. But there's, for a long time that I can remember, has been a tremendous urge to share something with people when something was understood, on whatever level. And that's not unique either for this human being. We are that way. We're not just angry at each other and defensive and aggressive and stuff. Although that's what we usually talk about. I have to say something about that too later. Why only talk about that? But there's this other thing, that when we really see something, when something is clear, then there's tremendous love and wanting to share with others. Because understanding wants to spread and reach out and include. And then to watch that it doesn't become a missionizing, whatever that word is, trying to convince people, because that becomes violent again, try to bop somebody over the head so he understands. The watching has to take place at all times, or else all kinds of weeds grow that fill up space and strangle the passageways. So I'm not denying sitting here and talking with a great deal of the German word comes to mind. It's Zuneigung, meaning leaning toward each other. It means affection, Zuneigung. Affection in this commonly undertaken journey into ourselves, which is all of us. To share it, to learn together, to reveal together, to listen to each other. And maybe in this listening and looking, what is revealed may stop choking us, distorting our vision. Bring about this precious ability to think clearly for oneself, to look clearly for oneself. Which doesn't mean it can't be done together. together there's some combined energies. Often people say, well, if I'm by myself, I just don't do those things. But if somebody challenges with a question, and one will be there and look. That doesn't mean everybody needs to be challenged. There's enough challenge in ourselves. But to sit quietly together and have a dialogue together, there's something quite marvelous in that. And that's what we're here to do. Not to establish one person as an authority and as a teacher, even though I do sit here and have the floor, as it were. You know, if things are clear to anyone, they will also talk. Have no worry about that. No worry about it. Because truth has its own momentum and intelligence and energy to communicate and to commune. It is not dependent. So, at the end of all of this, what is our relationship with each other? How do you feel? I can tell you how I feel. I already did. There's a lot of Zuneigung, affection, friendliness. I'm not just saying that. I'm not just talking myself into it. I'm not deceiving myself. Maybe I am. I have to look, keep looking. Because I may get angry too. But that can go away so quickly. So, are we sharing in this? A relationship of friendliness, of not you versus me. I'm not sitting on this chair to be higher than anyone. I haven't said it in a while, but one person once brought it up a year or so ago. It feels funny, she said, you talking about being on the same level, and here you sit higher. Well, we have enough chairs. Everybody can sit on the same level. I like this chair now. I have gotten used to it. I used to sit, even if I sat on this before, I would get down and sit on the mat just to avoid this problem. But one can clarify things, and we can look at it together and individually. Even though not to underestimate, just sort of, how can one call it, sort of implicit programs of hearing something from a bit higher. So we have to be very watchful not to fall under the influence. This is not a pulpit. If anything that is said in a talk stirs you up that you want to talk more about it, question it, you have the feeling this is not so, I see it differently, or you want to go over it again from the beginning, write it down after the talk and bring it to a meeting, group or private, and don't feel that you're bothering me with that. Sometimes people are very apologetic. Say, I've been here now, I've come here for 5 years, and you must be sick and tired of me, because I always bring the same problem and question. That's what this whole thing is all about. Always the same problems and questions. Not just for one person, for all of us. But we said earlier, if the mind and body can have this renewing quality of seeing it freshly, then it is no problem to look at the same problem. And there's a zest in looking at something together, opening it up, and meeting all the genies that are left out of the bottle, like fear or scaredness or threat. What's said often is very threatening to people. So can one face the threat, or will one have one's rationalization not to go on with it? Can one watch that and question it? Right now, for these 7 days, we can question it together, write it down, or maybe you remember it, and we'll take it up. It's a very spacious feeling in this retreat. In the meetings too, it makes a difference whether one keeps very tightly to 10 minutes as we have in the past several retreats, or has a little bit 15 plus. And don't think that you will offend me or bother me, or because that enters in that program somebody who is the one who's speaking here and who seems to have this privileged position. Have to be careful not to step on her toes, or all kind of stuff is there. Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously. Not all of our programs are in our awareness. That's the difficulty. That's the difficult thing. We have to be caught with great sensitivity and alertness. So, bring up anything. If you feel angry at me, then express it as it's happened before and I've survived it. Very well, actually, because it's all learning for all of us. Learning about all of our trigger mechanisms and in the energy of sitting there together. It's so much easier to see something because the energy is there to see it. And we don't have to do this. Maybe a few people on staff have extra chores in this retreat because they're so few. But even there, so if one has 4 hours or 5 hours, it leaves 19 hours a day with no burden. Food is here, the shopping has been done. I wondered about this thing that we decided about the news. If the person who does this feels he does not want to listen to this anymore, then let's just let people who want to hear it listen to the thing with earphones. I don't know how he feels about it, but he may feel, I don't want to. So then, in that case, don't feel obliged. You have no commitment to this. Fixing the food is another matter. No way out. During a talk, in case it's not clear, you can sit in any which position, find any amount of pillows. There must be at least 20 to a person in this retreat. We have so many. And we have chairs. You can upholster the chairs with pillows. Put something under your feet. Find where tensions are and relieve them. Because we don't need additional tensions to the ones we need to look at. I mean body tensions. And if you wish to change your posture, do so and do it quietly. And we have the sitting before the talk later now than we used to increase the break time. If you can, take a nap before a talk, because to be awake needs good sleep. When it's tired and dragged out, then it's very hard to be awake and listen to a talk and follow it, look and go with it. It takes a lot of energy and it generates a tremendous amount of energy. So if you can rest, then do it before the talk. And if you do go to sleep, don't feel bad about it. There's nothing to see as fault, but interested. Why does one go to sleep? One may be dragged out and tired, or sleep is one of our most marvelous escapes. Not to have to listen when you go to sleep. But often our dreams are kind of a problem too. We don't go into that. can we begin to look and discover without finding fault with ourselves or others? Or discover this constant fault-finding mechanism and question it, what it is doing, what its effects are. Examine it without finding fault with it. That hinders the examination. We will end here for today.